24 lawmakers face a recall vote this Saturday, and now major heads of industry are joining the campaign. Taiwan unveils a multi-billion US dollar roadmap to becoming one of the world's leading AI developers, with 10 AI projects taking center stage. Former Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je will be detained for another 2 months. The question now, will he be let out to vote in the recall elections? Plus, farmers in parts of Taiwan are still cleaning up after a typhoon and a tropical storm, and they're expecting more heavy weather ahead. Good evening and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Eric Gao. We start off today's show with an update on Taiwan's upcoming mass recall elections. In just a few days, Taiwan will hold a critical recall vote that could decide the fate of 24 opposition Kuomintang lawmakers. Our reporter Cadence Caranta has been following the recalls, and she joins us live from our newsroom in Taipei. Cadence, what's the atmosphere like in Taiwan before this crucial vote?
So it's definitely a politically charged atmosphere across Taiwan right now. This is the largest mass recall movement Taiwan has ever seen. 31 lawmakers from the opposition Kuomintang are facing recall votes this summer, and 24 of those votes will happen on Saturday. So it's a really big day. It's only 4 days away. So there's been near daily rallies on both sides of the political spectrum, both those in support of ousting these opposition lawmakers and those who want to keep them in office. They've been out campaigning on the streets. They've been passing out flyers, flying flags, all in an effort to get as many people out to vote on Saturday as possible. We've also seen some influential voices from the business community come out in support of these recalls. One of them was a big Taiwanese electronics manufacturing company called Pegatron. The head of that company came out in support of the recalls. This is what he said today about why he joined the fight.
很多人都感觉很闷，好像一潭水流不动了，容易这个变脏污，不管是商业环境、政治环境，应该让年轻的一代的人才都有发挥的空间。
So obviously the KMT is not very happy that someone so influential in the business community has come out in support of the recall campaigns so close to an election. And one KMT lawmaker that's facing a recall vote this summer said that is trying to make it clear that there are businesses on the side of the opposition as well.
我们也有好多百工百业，尤其很多中小企业也都在挺不同意嘛。
So this is all part of back and forth between the two sides, both trying to mobilize as many people as possible to get out and vote in their favor on Saturday, which could be a massive day for the entire political landscape in Taiwan.
Thanks for that update, Cadence. That was Cadence Caranta live from our newsroom in Taipei. Now, this recall movement isn't just the largest in Taiwan's history. It could be the biggest national level push to unseat elected officials in the world. Cadence looks at how this all began.
Something unprecedented is happening in Taiwan. Roughly a quarter of Taiwan's lawmakers could be ousted in the coming weeks, their political fates in the hands of voters once again, this time through recall votes. Taiwan has had recall elections before, but never on such a scale. One expert who studies recalls globally says this is likely the largest mass recall at the national level anywhere in the world.
So in terms of having a direct recall election attacking at the national level so many personalities, I think is absolutely exceptional.
So how did Taiwan get here? The right to recall is enshrined in Taiwan's constitution, giving voters the power to remove from office any elected official at any level. Recall attempts in Taiwan may be dated back to as early as the 1950s, but for several decades, most cases that made it to the voting stage targeted lower-level officials.
在当时罢免的层级主要就是针对乡镇市长 乡镇市民代表，还有像村里长这样的一个地方型的层级。
For years, attempts to recall higher-level officials failed because it was difficult to meet the high thresholds for signatures and voter turnout. In 1994, anti-nuclear groups launched recall campaigns against several lawmakers who were in support of building a new nuclear power plant in northern Taiwan. The campaigns were put to votes, but ultimately failed. Another small wave of recall campaigns targeting lawmakers was launched in 2014 after what's known as the Sunflower Movement. That year, hundreds of students occupied the legislature to protest a controversial trade deal with China. But once again, none of the campaigns were successful. Things started to change in 2016 when the law was amended to make it much easier to recall officials. In 2020, Han Guoyu, mayor of Kaohsiung, one of Taiwan's largest cities, was successfully recalled after over 900,000 people voted to remove him from office. The recall was driven by widespread public frustration, mostly over Han's decision to run for president just months after taking office, leaving many in the city feeling abandoned and betrayed. Just a year later, in 2021, a legislator caught up in a slew of controversial comments was removed from office, the first time ever a lawmaker in Taiwan had successfully been recalled. And that brings us to now, when Taiwan's recall law is being used on the largest scale yet. A total of 31 lawmakers face recall votes this summer, all of them from the main opposition Kuomintang. This unprecedented recall movement was sparked last year by months of public anger over the KMT's legislative agenda, from attempts to expand lawmakers' powers to massive cuts to government budgets. The KMT, allied with the smaller Taiwan People's Party, holds the majority in Taiwan's 113-seat legislature. If enough KMT lawmakers are removed, the opposition could lose its majority, reshaping the country's political landscape. And as voters get ready to head to the polls, all eyes are on Taiwan, with many watching closely to see how this pivotal moment will play out. Hank Xu and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
The Taipei District Court has decided to keep former Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je in detention for 2 more months. He has been held without contact for nearly a year now on corruption charges. But as Irene Lin reports, the big question is whether the court will let him out to vote on Saturday.
Former Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je will soon mark a year in detention as investigations into 2 corruption cases continue. That's after the Taipei District Court announced Ke's detention will be extended by 2 more months, effective on August 2nd. The judge says Ke, who used to lead the Taiwan People's Party, could collude with others and tamper with evidence if released. The TPP is protesting the decision.
我是强烈的建议，一定要依法提起抗告，不管机会大不大，在法律的程序上该怎么做就怎么做。在政治的层次上，跟这一个无良的政府，跟这一个违法滥权的赖清德政府宣战。
Despite being in custody, Ke has still received notice to vote in the upcoming recall elections on Saturday, a move the TPP is calling a crude joke by the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. But the DPP says Ke's right to vote or not has nothing to do with their party.
难道黄国昌会不知道，在台北市的投票通知单是由台北市选委会负责的吗？换而言之，如果黄国昌对这个作业有意见，他要问的人叫做台北市长蒋万安。
Meanwhile, Taipei Mayor Jiang Wan-an is brushing off any finger pointing.
我想问题的根源不在于投票通知单，而在于柯主席现在还被压。
With different parties and government agencies still debating who has the final say, and the July 26 election fast approaching, it's still unclear if Ke will get the chance to cast his vote. Scott Huang and Irene Lin for TaiwanPlus.
Details of a long-awaited AI plan from the National Development Council have been made public. They include billions of US dollars in AI investments, as well as venture capital for new startups. Chris Gorin was at the release of the plan's details, and he brings us more now. Chris, what do we know so far?
Well, as predicted, Eric, the NDC plans to spend more than $3 billion across 10 major projects, all of which involve AI or other high-tech industries. Now, the announcement of the plan comes following a meeting this morning with tech and finance industry leaders who are providing advice on this plan. Now, the NDC says that these investments now could lead to more than $500 billion in new economic output and create up to 500,000 new high-paying jobs. Now, the 10 projects include much of what we've seen the cabinet discuss before, and that includes investments for AI in infrastructure, healthcare, chip-related technologies, robotics, quantum computing, and more. But during the release of the plan, the NDC chairman, Paul Liu, also emphasized a few key points, one of which is integrating Taiwan's software industry. Now, he noted that Taiwan has a strong position in computer hardware, but is a little bit less prominent in software compared to countries like the United States or China, and the NDC is hoping to change that.
大厂硬体带软体，大的带小的，就会让我们这一波机会比较大一点。
Now, in addition to the $3 billion for the 10 high-tech projects, the NDC also announced that there will be an additional more than $3 billion for a new venture capital fund for Taiwan startups. And they also, Mark Liu also asked that the private industry invest into this fund, and he says it could see many billions more than just that initial $3 billion. Now, the NDC says that these 10 projects could lead to more than $500 billion in new economic output by the year 2040. And to hear him tell it, he thinks that this could also solve some of Taiwan's big social problems, like persistently low salaries and a declining birth rate. But it's clear that Taiwan is betting big on its position in the AI economy and hoping that it can turn itself into what President Lai Ching-te has called the AI island. Eric?
Thanks, Chris. That was Chris Gorn, live from our newsroom here in Taipei. Now, Taiwanese chip giant TSMC's market value has surpassed $1 trillion for the first time, driven by rising demand for AI chips around the globe. The new record was set last Friday. Shares in the company closed at $40 each that day on Taiwan's stock market. It makes TSMC the first Asian stock to reach a $1 trillion valuation in nearly 2 decades, and it comes just after the company forecast 30% revenue growth for 2025. The de facto U.S. embassy here in Taiwan says the two countries are in talks about a joint spaceport project. In a Facebook post on Monday, the American Institute in Taiwan said officials from both sides have started talks about the feasibility of the project. It said a suborbital space flight between Taiwan and Houston would take only 2.5 hours. The village of Jiupeng in the southern county of Pingdong has been identified as a potential spaceport site. Stay tuned to TaiwanPlus, because coming up after the break, South Korean apple farmers fear the impact of cheap American imports as Seoul contends with Washington over the threat of tariffs. Start your weekend with a cup of coffee and a moment to reflect on what happened this week.
Hello and welcome.
We've got you covered, from defense and politics to high tech and the arts.
Not just to Taiwan, the whole world is watching.
You make the coffee, we make the news. Here's what happened on TaiwanPlus.
For more stories from Taiwan, around the world, and Washington, D.C., please download the TaiwanPlus app and follow us on social media.
The 59th Golden Bell Awards 2024. Award-winning Mandarin drama.
辩方主张停止审判。
Court of Lies. Catch Taiwan's hit series now on TaiwanPlus.
At Connected, we believe in the power of dialogue.
Taipei 101 Station.
not just about the headlines, it's about finding common ground. Join the conversation.
Connected with Divya Gopalan on TaiwanPlus.
经历过人生的话，你发现说我们大部分都是暧昧的。
我自己少遇见一朵花，我可能就不是这个样子。
开始思考什么叫做一个本土性，
大声的唱出来说我是台湾人。
In the face of adversity, the power of truth.
A roadmap for a just and open world, charted by the freest country in Asia.
Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. The U.S. House of Representatives has passed a bill aimed at preventing conflict between China and Taiwan. The Taiwan Conflict Deterrence Act would require the U.S. government to publish the financial information of high-level Chinese Communist Party officials in the case of a war in the Taiwan Strait. The bill would also restrict financial services for their immediate family members. It now moves on to the Senate before it can be made into law. For more on the Taiwan Conflict Deterrence Act and what it could mean for cross-strait relations, our reporter Tiffany Wong spoke with Ja Ian Chong, an associate professor at the National University of Singapore.
Do you think that threatening to reveal CCP officials' financial transactions is an effective method of deterrence for a possible conflict between China and Taiwan?
So these sanctions are probably okay for dealing with lower intensity kinds of situations, including gray zone kinds of operations. But if we're talking about some sort of higher intensity blockade or invasion scenario, then I think they would probably be less effective, because by that point, the CCP leadership has already decided that they're going to pull out all the stops, and it's really high stakes, and it would take a lot more than this sort of financial information, perhaps potentially embarrassing personal information, to discourage them from taking those more drastic forms of action.
Why is this bill being brought up now? Does that indicate that China may be increasing its aggression right now?
Yeah, so this bill comes up from time to time. We'll see whether it passes. It's one of these things that Congress and various administrations have mulled over, which is the use of financial information to embarrass potentially senior CCP leaders in order to get them to back off from some of their more threatening behavior. I guess the effectiveness, the scope of such information, I suppose, in terms of actually affecting CCP behavior, has given some pause to previous attempts. We'll have to see whether that happens again this time around.
So you mentioned that the bill has been brought up before. Do you think it will pass in the Senate this time?
I'm not sure whether it would pass in the Senate this time around. There doesn't seem to be much momentum building, in part because I think when you look at the targeted sanctions in the past, they have effect, but the effect tends to be slow. For instance, with the case of Russia, that it's not fully discouraged Russia from, continuing with its invasion of Ukraine. And I guess some of this might hinge also on what the Congress, especially the Republicans, think of Donald Trump's efforts to negotiate some sort of arrangement with the PRC on trade. So they probably don't want to complicate or derail Trump's efforts. So a lot may hinge on those other considerations too.
That was Singapore-based political analyst Ja Ian Chong. Ukrainian officials are preparing for peace negotiations with Russia set for Wednesday.
Сьогодні я обговорив з Рустемом Умєровим підготовку обміну та ще однієї зустрічі в Туреччині з російською стороною. Умєров доповів, що зустріч планується на середу. Завтра буде більше деталей.
This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump increased pressure on Russia last week, threatening 100% tariffs on Russian goods if no peace deal is reached within 50 days. Umerov is a former Ukrainian defense minister and has led previous peace negotiations. The last two rounds of talks in March and June failed to reach a ceasefire, but did result in a large-scale prisoner exchange. Taiwan's foreign ministry is defending its decision to donate to a medical program in an Israeli settlement in the occupied West Bank. It says the funds are strictly for humanitarian aid.
那我们的话，这个部分目前呢，相关讨论的议题都是跟人道援助、卫生医疗合作有关。那所以双方就这个议题在进行讨论当中。
The ministry was responding to concerns raised in a South China Morning Post report, which said the donation could violate international norms on dealing with Israeli-occupied areas. The UN considers Israeli settlements in the Palestinian territories as illegal under international law. Taiwan's foreign ministry says the donation is still under discussion and is strictly focused on humanitarian goals. Two major storms have hit Taiwan within a month, leaving a trail of damage across much of the country. The stormy weather may not be over as a new system forms near the Philippines. John Van Trieste reports.
On this Yunlin County farm, days of intense rainfall have ruined the harvest. Gourds rot on the vine, taken out by Typhoon Danas and Tropical Storm Wipa. The farmer says there's nothing to be done. It's a similar story on farms across Taiwan. Agricultural damage has hit $64 million. And it could be tricky finding the funding to bail farmers out, as this isn't the first disaster to hit crops this year.
年初开始有非常多的低温，已经造成的这些天然灾害的损失，所以这一次的台风一定是不够的。我们还是会想办法用以缓济急，或用其他的方式来争取。
And it's not just on the farms. The roads and railways may be reopened and the power back on, but the bill for replacing everything lost in the storms will be steep. State-run energy company Taipower, for instance, expects to pay $34 million to fix all the damage. And then there are homeowners. Taidong County resident Zhou Xinlan's house is one of over 18,000 to suffer damage from flooding or landslides as heavy rains lashed Taiwan. She came home to find muddy water covering the ground floor. Her corner in southeastern Taiwan saw up to 700 millimeters of rain in 3 days in some places. Her grandson says the double punch of a typhoon plus a tropical storm in the same month has been hard on the area. And typhoon season is far from over. Already, a depression is brewing near the Philippines that could bring yet another blow. The storm will be nearest to Taiwan on the 24th and 25th.
这个低气压的话，在之后的话，看起来是有慢慢增强的一个趋势。那移动的方向目前来看，大概会偏西北的方向，然后通过琉球群岛，然后再往在北上的一个机会比较高一点。
That could mean a near miss, just scraping past Taiwan. But much of the country is still waterlogged, and any more heavy rain will likely bring further disaster. Alex Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Anxieties are high for South Korea's apple farmers. That's after the country's trade minister suggested that it is considering concessions on imports of U.S. products to avoid tariffs on key South Korean exports. It comes as pressure is mounting on Seoul to strike a deal with Washington before August 1st, or face a 25% tariff on all its goods. Izzy Wells has more.
Shim Chun-tae wakes up at 3 a.m. every morning to tend to these orchards in South Korea's southeastern Cheongsong County. It's an area renowned for its flavorful apples, and apple farmers make up around a third of households. But Shim is now worried his livelihood could be at risk. Just last week, South Korea's trade minister hinted it could make concessions on some U.S. agricultural imports in efforts to avoid tariffs on key exports like cars and steel.
U.S. apples are very cheap. We can't compete with them. It's like an elementary school student in a fight with a university student. There's no way to win.
Apple farmers here have already been grappling with issues ranging from climate change to wildfires, smaller harvests and rising prices. And for many, the pressure of competing with cheaper U.S. produce could be the final blow.
If we surrender to the overwhelming pressure of agricultural imports from a vast and powerful country like the United States, who in Korea would still be willing to work in agriculture? Farming is not just an industry, it's a lifeline.
국민 먹거리 안전농산물 보장하라!
While anxieties run high for farmers here, this isn't the first time agriculture issues have driven people to the streets. Washington has long called for better access for its agricultural wares, but past attempts to open up South Korea's market to American beef have sparked nationwide protests, and the sector remains sensitive. But the new government faces a tough deadline: strike a deal with the US before August 1st or face a tariff of 25% on all of its goods. For a country where exports made up 40% of GDP last year, the stakes are very high. However, not everyone sees cheap US imports as a threat.
Although putting protections on agriculture does shield farmers, it also means ordinary consumers don't get to enjoy cheaper foreign agricultural products.
Apples are just one of the trade-offs that is now under scrutiny. With the August 1st deadline fast approaching and a new round of talks set for July 25th, the future of these fruits and the farmers who grow them still hangs in the balance. Andy Scher and Izzy Wells for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Before we go, we bring you images of an ongoing volcanic eruption in Iceland. I'm Eric Gao. Take care. We'll see you next time.